across the Bay of Seine. The American First Army would land in the west on Utah and Omaha beaches, while the British Second Army would land in the east on Gold, Juno and Sword between Port-au-Bassin and Quistral. The first objective of the Allies on the night of the 5th of June. The task of the 6th Airborne Division objective was to seize and hold the east flank of the beachhead northeast of Caen. To achieve this, they had to seize intact the vital crossing over the River Orne and the Caen Canal, destroy the bridges in the Dives Valley, and secure the high ground overlooking the beachheads at Le Plain. To the north stood the Merville Battery, which had to be put out of action. The whole operation was to be carried out before the first of the invasion troops came ashore at dawn.
The atmosphere to me, it was strange. It was as though, although I was there, I was sort of not involved in it.
The Caen Canal Bridge, later to be renamed Pegasus, was captured by D Company of the 2nd Battalion Oxford and Buckingham Light Infantry. The success of Major John Howard and his men in capturing the bridges in the first half hour of D-Day prevented German armoured divisions moving in from the east and attacking the invasion beaches. It was vital to capture the bridge intact in order to prevent German reinforcements reaching the invasion beaches. The original Pegasus Bridge occupied this site until autumn 1993, still displaying the scars of battle.
The drill when you come into land is you link arms with the man either side of you. In my case it was Den Brothers, the platoon commander, on one side, and you do a butcher's grip with your fingers. You lift your legs and you just pray to God your number isn't up, and that's all you can do. You're entirely in the hands of those glider pilots. Those 3 glider pilots in the middle of the night put them exactly where I wanted them, and the aerial photographs which were taken next morning showed just that. They were the main key to our success, I suppose, because without that accuracy we'd had a hell of a job to capture those bridges, even though they weren't standing to. We had complete surprise.
Such was the speed of the attack that the bridge was captured within 15 minutes. As platoon leader, Lieutenant Den Brotheridge led the first assault across the bridge, he was fatally wounded and became the first Allied soldier to die on D-Day.
He was labeled the hero of the D-Day invasion. That caught my attention when I saw that. The hero of the D-Day invasion. It was the largest armada of fleet, military personnel, Navy ships the world had ever seen. The man died in 1999, and he caught my attention because they said he was the hero of the D-Day invasion. He wasn't a general. It wasn't Eisenhower. In fact, a man I'd never even heard of before. He had a mission to do and save tens of thousands of lives. This armada consisted of over 3,000 personnel. Of them, 4,000 they had ships, 11,000 planes, 18,000 paratroopers, and nearly 250,000 men who were the assault troops who were on the ships who were going to land at Normandy June 6, 1944. The man was a major in the British Army. Anybody have any idea who this could be? What was interesting, before I tell you his name, is that I saw the analogies of this man's life as a parallel to the understanding of the calling that God has given to you and I. And as I go through this, I said, well, maybe this just is a little old-fashioned to do it this way. But what I want to do today is I want to tell you about this man's life to begin with. And then I'd like to go through and talk about this as the parallel of how this man's life and what he actually went through, similar to what you and I either have gone through or will go through before the return of Jesus Christ. His name, Major John Howard. When he died, the label on the New York Times said, the hero of the D-Day invasion died. Major John Howard. I said, John Howard, never heard of the man before. What in the world could this man possibly have done to be considered the hero of the D-Day invasion? Something so large and so powerful. He actually commanded only 181 men. He was a major in the British 6th Airborne Division. I wanted to make sure I got this correct. He was in charge of a glider regiment. Now, if you saw the movie, The Longest Day, it has just a little blip in there about what his job was. But as I typed in on the internet and started looking about this man's life, it became fascinating to see how important his job was. It seemed to be unassuming when you look at what the jobs of Monty, the British general, was, or Eisenhower, or any of the other generals, Patton, and how they commanded just entire armies and regiments and tens of thousands of men and personnel. He had 181 men under his command and 3 airplanes. They were gliders. They didn't even have motors. They said, here's a guy, just give him a plane and fly him in. That meant when he landed, he wasn't coming back. He either successfully completed his mission or he would be dead. And at the very least, he would be taken prisoner by the Germans during that time. Mission was to seize 2 bridges. Now let me give you his orders, and I wrote this down so I can get this correct, because it's very short. His orders were: seize 2 bridges, under cover by night, take by surprise and capture intact by your raiders at night without benefit of ground support. You will assault the garrison, overwhelm it, and hold until we leave.
Release point coming up, Major Howard. Right, prepare for landing. Cutting loose now. Roger, and out.
Major Howard, I cannot overestimate the importance of your task. The Orne River Bridge must be captured before the enemy can destroy it. This bridge is a vital military artery, and the enemy has prepared it for demolition. It must be taken by surprise and captured intact. Your gliders will land at night without the benefit of ground support. You will assault the garrison, overwhelm it, and hold until relieved. Hold until relieved.
That was his mission. The hero of the D-Day invasion. Now, when I heard, and what made me start thinking about this, was the commission at the end of his orders that said, hold until relieved. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. By the way, if you're looking for a title for this sermon, that is the title today. Hold until relieved. That's what his job was. Let me give you some fascinating stories about this man. He was a common, ordinary person. Now, I really want you to think about this, because he became a major in the British forces, which was usually reserved for the well-to-do, the educated, those who went through special training. When he went into the military, he was the eldest of 9 kids. He got a scholarship at 14 because of his math, but because of his finances, he could not go to college, so he simply joined the military. 3 years after the military, he got out, became a police officer for 18 months. By 1939, the war had broken out, and it changed his life. Now, I'm telling you things about a common, ordinary man, and as we get later into the sermon, I want you to try to picture the spiritual parallel of what's going on here and a calling that God has given to each one of you. Now, as I went through this man's life, I tell you what I seen. the scriptures came screaming of the understanding that God has given to you and I for this important mission. The mission was called Overlord. Even in the title, I thought about the fascination of the story of Jesus Christ who's coming back, who looked at his disciples when people looked at us and heard them speak, where they said, well, aren't these unlearned men? Or these were just common people that God had called to do a powerful work, to do a specific job. And when Jesus Christ comes back, he will be Lord over all. And so you see the title of Operation Overlord, where Jesus Christ and his operation will be Lord over all. By 1939, the war had been brought to England. The events of that day changed the rest of his life. He went back into the war effort at 1939, after he had served 18 months as a police officer. He rose from the ranks of a corporal as they brought him back in. Through the next couple of years, by 1941, he became a lieutenant. By 1944, he was a major. He had proven himself through numerous combats and had won the respect of all of those around him. His job was to be able to take these bridges intact. The two bridges that he had to take were the most important strategic bridges of that area. By him capturing those bridges meant that he would protect 10,000 British troopers who were being dropped behind enemy lines. It would also prevent the Germans from counterattack and bringing up the Nazi Panzer Division, which would have annihilated many of those who were coming in on the shore before they ever reached land. It saved literally tens of thousands of lives. Now, think about that. When I saw that, I'm thinking, I said, you know, God has given you and I an incredible task before the end time. And I'm going to turn to a couple of scriptures later, but I just want to refer to them now, and we'll go to them a little bit later. But when I seen how many lives would be saved by this man's job, the weight of that responsibility had to be awesome. You and I can look in Matthew 24 and see the responsibility that he has given to you and I, which I believe is an end-time generation. When I look in Matthew 24 and I see the scripture that says, if not for the elect's sake, no flesh would be saved. Now, I don't know how you feel about that responsibility, but it's incredible. It's an awesome responsibility that God has given to each one of you and each one in me, and each one that God has called throughout this world. The operation that he had as a subtitle for Operation Overlord was nothing of any major importance. It was called, I love this, Operation Mush.